Welcome back. Let's keep going with this topic. So what kind of systems do you use on a regular basis? Here's some examples of things that may come to mind. I've got YouTube in there. In fact, YouTube is probably the place I go to most for a lot of my watching. Got all kinds of social media things like Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. We've got some useful things here at the college like Desire to Learn, shopping like Amazon and other sites. Google Maps is in there, banking, and then of course we have productivity systems like Excel, and we can think of Word and PowerPoint as well. And that's just a few, right? We can think of all kinds of systems that we use on a regular basis. That's not always been true. In fact, we don't have to go back that many years to when people didn't use systems at all. So systems have sort of become a part of our lives without us really thinking about it too much. But technology really is everywhere, both personally and at work. There's been some things that have sort of driven that as well. One of the things you might hear about is Moore's Law, and that says that computer power roughly doubles about every 2 years. Doesn't quite say that exactly, but approximately. And that's been actually a pretty good predictor over time. If we go back and we look and we go back to, let's say, 1980, jump forward to 1982, or we go to 1988 and jump forward to 1990, or 2000 and jump forward to 2002, we saw that in each of those cases, the power of processors roughly doubled. That's an important thing because we need processing power to handle large amounts of data and to do analysis and that sort of thing. So that's opened up new avenues for us, which is kind of nice. Another one you might hear about is network effects. And that really just means the larger the network, the more valuable it is. Think about your personal network of connections and people you know. If you only knew 3 people, it might not be very useful for finding work, but if you knew 300, you'd be well connected and you could leverage that network and get some value out of it. Same thing if we think of cell phones or telephones even. The very first person to have a telephone was probably pretty useless. They needed a second person at least to have a telephone so they could have a conversation. But the value really took off as many people got telephones. Then we could see some value because you could connect and talk to people everywhere. Same thing with computers. And so as networks have grown over the last few decades, we've got more value out of them, and that's the network effect. The other thing you might hear mentioned is mobility. It's something new really in the world of technology. It's not that long ago that all computers were desktops, and if you wanted to take computing power with you, you better clear out your trunk and load up the car because it was hard to do. In fact, I have friends who used to go on little retreats once in a while from work, and that's exactly what they do. They dismantle their desktop, put it in the car, take it with them to the place that they were staying for their retreat to do some work, and put it all back together again. Hard to believe. We've got more power now in our phones, don't we? They just pop in our pocket. We got great computing power on there if we choose to use it for all kinds of things. It's not uncommon now in workplaces to see people using mobile devices and taking them with them. In fact, it's sort of the norm, isn't it? There's a fellow named Tykal who suggested that within the next decade, unlimited storage would be almost free. Analytical software would reveal hidden treasures, as he put it. The real and virtual worlds would collide because networks would be cheap, reliable, and widely available. And all of that would kind of make deep, powerful changes in almost every industry and business. Now, the interesting thing here is he said this about 10 years ago. So here we are at the end of that decade. Has this come true? Well, let's think about it. You signed up for your free Microsoft Office account here at the college and you got 1 terabyte of storage. That's an incredible amount of storage for free. Analytical software is doing things now we could have only dreamed of in the past, far beyond what human kind of capabilities are. The real and virtual worlds are colliding, aren't they? And promising to do so much more as we get into 5G networks and things like that. Um, and networks are cheap and reliable and widely available. In fact, it's kind of hard now to go anywhere in the world and not be connected in some way. And we know that that's improving all the time as well with satellites and everything else. So that's certainly become true. And then has that changed industry as well at all or allowed innovations? And absolutely. Think about the music industry and how that's changed over the last 10 years. Totally different, right? So now we're just into streaming, whereas if we go back 10 years, people would still often go and buy CDs and play them on their CD players. So big changes there. What about other industries? How about education? Well, what if the pandemic had hit 10 years ago? What would the college have done? It would have been a lot harder for us to keep going and provide courses for students during this time. Now, with the use of technology, not only do we have the technology to put courses together that aren't too bad, we can distribute them out to students, and students have the technology to participate in those courses. So there's another industry that's been changed. And do you think education will ever quite go back to the way it used to be? Probably not. I think we'll keep some of the things we've learned during the pandemic and incorporate those. So things will change for the better as we keep going forward. We can pick any other industry as well. Think about retail shopping. If you've lived in Victoria for a while, you may remember that we used to have Sears at Hillside Shopping Center and other stores like that in town going back, and they're all gone. Where do we shop now? Amazon. So again, big changes in almost every industry because of technology. In 1981, I bought a personal computer for myself. I was pretty young then, but I was into computers, and I bought a Texas Instruments computer, personal computer, and I needed some more memory, and I bought 32 kilobytes of RAM. Right, that's the memory inside the computer for $500. All right, so think about it now. Your cell phone probably has 2 or 3 gigabytes of RAM in there now compared to the 32 kilobytes I had back then. If the price had stayed the same, it would now cost about $16 million for 1 gigabyte of RAM. So your cell phone would cost you, just for memory alone, maybe $50–60 million. So you can see how much the cost of memory has gone down over time. And it's true with pretty much any technology that we think of. The cost has gone down dramatically over time. Another trend we have to think about is globalization. We've got what we call a flattened world. One of the key things about that, it means there's fewer barriers to trade. The world really is interconnected now in some interesting ways, and things that are ways that we may not be that aware of. That's one of the reasons, by the way, that people say there will never be another world war. Countries are too interconnected and too interdependent upon each other to ever pull that apart. And so that's provided new opportunities as well, hasn't it? So we've got countries connected like never before, interdependent upon each other, but we do that because it's got great business value and great business opportunities. And we do see that, by the way. You may not see this in the news very often because they tend to like the sensational doom and gloom stuff. But if you look at the real statistics, the world is getting better in many ways. We can see that education levels, employment levels, income levels getting better pretty much universally around the world in general. And a lot of that's due to our flattened world that we have now. The internet's been a big part of that. It's really reduced the cost of operating on a global scale. We've now got essentially a free flow of information going around the globe, and that's opened things up like never before. If you're a little bit younger than I am, and you probably are, you won't recall, but when I was younger, it was really hard to get information from another country. You'd have to stay up late and make a phone call that was very expensive to the other country, hope you could get the right person and get the information you need. It was kind of almost not practical for most purposes. And now, no problem. Just go online day or night, anytime on your phone. You can find out what you need, share information back and forth. Super easy. So is that going to change things and keep improving as we go forward, by the way? Probably so. Think about what the world's going to be like in a couple of years from now. This one article I noticed recently that just kind of shows the extent for you of how connected we are. They think that internet shutdowns, little outages here and there for whatever reason, cost the global economy about $8 billion last year in 2019. So we are dependent on the internet, aren't we? If the internet were to go down, it would cost us tremendously. And even when it goes down for just a little bit, there's a big cost to it. One of the areas I mentioned in our textbook that you'll read about, if you haven't already, is the information and communications technology sector. That's what we call the economy sector in Canada that deals with software, computer services, cable, program distributors, telecommunications, manufacturing and wholesaling, that sort of thing. It's sort of a catch-all for those types of jobs. And they talk about, how big that sector is. Is it an important sector or not to our economy? And we've got some 2016 statistics here. Now you'll notice that the biggest piece in there, if we look at the chart on the right, is the software and computer services, this piece right here. That's maybe an opportunity for us to find jobs as business people, isn't it? Because we may not be coding, but we may be coming up with ideas for new software. We may be managing the projects. We may be managing customer service and support, that sort of thing. So lots of opportunity in there. And so that's a pretty big part of that subsector. Lots of good jobs in there, really, that we can think about. Jobs you may not be aware of, but we'll learn about some of those over time. And again, here's another interesting chart over here. They say a lot of these jobs exist in pretty small companies. So it shows that there's opportunities in smaller companies. In fact, some of the more talented young people I know have chosen to work in startups, in small companies that are just getting going with all kinds of innovative things, and technology is usually a pretty big piece of that. Now, a lot of these jobs combine two key areas, technical and business skills. That's why we have a course like Biz 241. You've got lots of business skills from your other courses. You've been learning some good things, and you're going to keep learning more good things as you go through your program, whether it's in HR or accounting or marketing or general business. You're going to pick up all kinds of great skills by the time you graduate. But we also want to give you some technical skills to throw in the mix there, because it's that combination that's really a killer skill set when you get out there and look for jobs. If you don't believe me, just go look for job postings for some interesting jobs that you might want when you graduate, and you'll see that they're looking for someone who's got that mix. So it's worth exploring. You may find other courses that you want to do as well once you finish Biz 241, maybe something in data analytics or that sort of thing, to give you the kind of that edge over other people, right? And help you find a career that you're going to find fun and interesting and worth doing. Now, as part of the readings for this week, you'll notice in D2L, I've posted a link to an updated version of this article with some newer statistics. They're very similar, of course, as you might expect, but the good news is it's growing, right? So I also thought it might get bigger, and it has. And so you can go and explore that a little bit as well, just to get a sense for what's in there. So I guess my big takeaway for you here out of this is that systems really are everywhere, globally, personally, and everything in between. Technology is ubiquitous, in other words. That's a word that means everywhere, that it's everywhere, in both our personal and our professional lives. If we want to understand business, you have to understand the systems that support it. That's really key, isn't it? Let's say that again. If you want to understand business, you have to understand the systems that support it. All right, that's what this course is all about for you. to get you started on that. We're going to continue to find new opportunities as well for using systems as we go forward. Think about it already. You may have seen articles or people talking about, oh, this job's going to get replaced with robots or artificial intelligence or machine learning or all kinds of things like that. And we're going to continue to find new opportunities. Does that mean people will be obsolete? Well, I don't know. Sometimes we worry about that. But I think it just means there'll be new opportunities and different jobs for us to do, especially if you're working in something that involves creativity and analysis and thinking, rather than sort of repetitive tasks that can be automated. So I think you've done the first big good step you could do in your lives, and that's take a program that's a business program, because that is a type of job that takes you to that next level, isn't it? So hopefully you'll find interesting things as you move forward as well. They may not be quite what you expected, but there'll still be opportunities. So that's it for this portion. In the next video, I'm going to talk just a little bit more about what some of this might mean for your career and for you personally.